Robert Williams stared out the window of his penthouse office, watching people move like tiny ants 30 floors below. At 52 years old, he had everything money could buy. Private jets, luxury cars, mansions around the world. His tech company was worth billions. But something was eating at him from the inside. Just 3 months ago, his divorce had been finalized. 20 years of marriage gone. The worst part wasn't losing his wife. It was discovering why she really married him. During the divorce proceedings, her family's true colors came out. Her brother demanded money for his failed business. Her mother wanted a new house. Even distant cousins suddenly needed help with their debts. It was never about love, Robert whispered to himself, remembering his ex-wife's cold words during their last conversation. "You think people care about you? They only see your bank account." Those words haunted him day and night. Was she right? Had his entire life been surrounded by people who only wanted his money? Even his business partners, his employees, his friends at the country club, did any of them actually care about Robert the person, or just Robert the billionaire? The thought made his stomach turn. He had worked 18-hour days to build his empire, thinking he was creating something meaningful. But what if it was all meaningless? What if he was just a walking ATM to everyone around him? Robert stood up from his leather chair and walked to his bathroom mirror. His gray hair was perfectly styled. His expensive suit fit like a glove. But looking at himself, he saw a stranger. When was the last time someone had spoken to him without knowing his net worth? When was the last time he had a genuine conversation with another human being? An idea started forming in his mind. A crazy idea, but one that wouldn't leave him alone. What if he could find out how people really behaved when they thought he was nobody special? What if he could see the real truth about human nature? The next morning, Robert called his personal assistant. "Cancel all my meetings for the next 2 weeks," he said. "Sir, you have the board meeting on Thursday and the investor presentation. Move everything. I have something important to do." Robert drove to a discount clothing store in a part of town he never visited. He bought simple work clothes, plain blue pants, white shirts, work boots. Nothing fancy. At a costume shop, he got a fake mustache and some makeup to make his skin look rougher, more weathered. He practiced walking differently, talking differently. Instead of the confident stride of a CEO, he learned to shuffle his feet like someone tired from long hours of manual labor. The transformation was incredible. Looking in the mirror, he saw Tom Martinez, a middle-aged maintenance worker struggling to pay his bills. Robert Williams, the billionaire, had disappeared. But where could he test this disguise? It had to be somewhere with different types of people, somewhere he could observe how humans really treated each other when money and status were involved. The Grand Plaza Hotel was perfect. It was one of the most expensive hotels in the city, attracting wealthy guests, business people, and tourists. But it also employed dozens of regular working people, cleaning staff, maintenance workers, kitchen help. The contrast would be ideal for his experiment. Getting a job there was easier than he expected. The hotel was always looking for maintenance workers, and Tom Martinez's fake references checked out thanks to Robert's connections. Within 3 days, he was wearing a gray uniform with Tom stitched on the pocket, pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies through marble hallways that cost more than most people's houses. The first 2 days were eye-opening. Wealthy guests looked right through him as if he didn't exist. Business people stepped aside when he approached, not wanting to be near the help. Some even made comments about him when they thought he couldn't hear. "These people have no idea how to work efficiently," one woman complained to her friend, watching Tom fix a loose doorknob. "I know, right? If I ran this place, I'd fire half the staff," her friend replied. But the hotel employees were different. They shared their lunch with him, asked about his day, treated him like family. Rosa, the head of housekeeping, brought him coffee when she saw he looked tired. Danny from security always greeted him with a genuine smile and asked about his weekend plans. It was confusing and enlightening at the same time. The people with the least money showed the most kindness. The people with the most money showed the least humanity. On his 3rd day, Robert decided it was time for the real test. He needed to see how people would react when faced with a moral choice involving money. Not just any money, significant money that could change someone's life. He went to the bank and got 2 identical prepaid credit cards, each one loaded with $10,000. It was a lot of money for most people, but pocket change for him, the perfect amount to test someone's honesty. Now he needed to find the right people for his experiment. They had to be different types, different backgrounds, different situations in life. He wanted to see if money brought out the same greed in everyone, or if some people were genuinely different. That afternoon, while cleaning the hotel lobby, he spotted his first test subject. A young woman in an expensive business suit sat in one of the leather chairs, typing aggressively on her laptop. Her designer handbag probably cost more than most people made in a month. Diamond earrings caught the light as she talked loudly on her phone about some business deal. "I don't care what it takes," she was saying. "I want that promotion. I deserve it more than anyone else in that office." She looked like success, but there was something hungry in her eyes. Something that reminded Robert of his ex-wife's family. Always wanting more, never satisfied. Perfect for the first part of his test. The second person took longer to find. He was looking for someone different, someone who represented the other side of society. As he pushed his cleaning cart through the service corridors, he found her. A woman in her 40s was on her knees, carefully scrubbing the marble floor near the hotel's back entrance. Her uniform was clean but worn. Her hands were rough from years of hard work. When she looked up and saw him, she smiled warmly. "You must be Tom," she said, standing up slowly. "I'm Carmen. Rosa told me we had someone new on the maintenance team." "Nice to meet you," Robert replied, staying in character. Carmen seemed different from everyone else he'd met. There was a tiredness in her eyes, but also dignity. Pride in her work, even though it was hard and didn't pay much. When she smiled, it reached her eyes in a way that felt genuine. As Robert watched her work for the rest of the day, he noticed small things. How she helped an elderly guest who dropped his wallet. How she stayed late to help a newer employee who was struggling. How she ate a simple sandwich for lunch while reading what looked like college brochures. These were his two test subjects. Now came the real challenge. Setting up the experiment in a way that would reveal their true character. He had the money loaded on the cards. He had the perfect cover story. All he needed was the right moment to approach them. But as Robert prepared for his test, he had no idea that what he was about to discover would change not just his view of humanity, but his entire life. The next morning would bring revelations that would leave him speechless. Robert's heart was pounding as he walked toward the hotel lobby the next morning. Today was the day he would test human nature itself. In his pocket were two identical black credit cards, each loaded with $10,000. Enough money to change someone's life or reveal their true character. The young businesswoman was exactly where he expected her to be, sitting in the same leather chair, wearing another expensive outfit, talking loudly on her phone. Her name tag from some conference read, Victoria Chen, investment manager. Robert took a deep breath and approached her, staying in character as Tom, the maintenance worker. "Excuse me, miss," he said, his voice humble and uncertain. Victoria looked up with annoyance, as if he was interrupting something important. "What?" she snapped, covering her phone. "I found this on the floor over there," Robert said, holding up one of the black cards. "Looks like someone dropped it. I don't know what it is, but it seems important. You look like a smart business person. Maybe you know how to find who it belongs to." Victoria's expression changed immediately. Her eyes locked onto the card with interest. "Let me see that," she said, taking it from his hand. Robert had practiced this story dozens of times. "I asked at the front desk, but they said they can't help unless someone reports it missing. I just want to make sure the right person gets it back, you know? It would be wrong to keep something that isn't mine." "Of course," Victoria said, but she was already examining the card carefully. "I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it anymore." "You sure?" "I feel responsible since I found it. Trust me, I know exactly what to do," Victoria said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I deal with financial matters all the time. I'll make sure it gets to the right place." Robert thanked her and walked away, but he didn't go far. From behind a large plant, he watched as Victoria immediately pulled out her phone. She photographed the card, then made a quick call. "Hi, this is Victoria Chen. I need to check the balance on a prepaid card," she said quietly. Robert's stomach sank as he watched her face light up when she heard the amount. $10,000. Victoria looked around to make sure no one was watching, then quickly slipped the card into her designer purse. She didn't call the front desk. She didn't post anything on the hotel's lost and found board. She didn't even hesitate. Within 30 minutes, Robert watched through the lobby window as Victoria walked to the ATM outside. She withdrew the maximum daily amount, then went straight to the hotel's gift shop. She bought expensive perfume, designer scarves, and luxury chocolates. all charged to the card she had promised to return to its rightful owner. The cashier was impressed. "Having a good shopping day?" she asked with a smile. "You could say that," Victoria laughed. "Sometimes life gives you unexpected gifts." Robert felt sick. His ex-wife's words echoed in his head. "People only see your bank account." Was this proof that she was right? That when faced with easy money, people would choose greed over honesty every time? But he still had one more test to complete. Finding Carmen took longer. She worked in different parts of the hotel throughout the day, always busy, always moving. He finally found her in the employee break room during her lunch hour. She was sitting alone, eating a simple sandwich and looking at papers spread across the table. As Robert got closer, he could see they were college applications and financial aid forms. The name at the top read Isabella Santos, probably her daughter. "Hi, Carmen," Robert said, approaching her table. "Oh, hi, Tom," Carmen said, looking up with that same genuine smile. "How are you settling in? Learning your way around this big place?" "Yeah, everyone's been really helpful," Robert said. "Actually, I was hoping you could help me with something. I found this outside near the service entrance." He pulled out the second card. "Looks like someone dropped it. I have no idea what it is, but I figured maybe you've been here longer and might know what to do with it." Carmen set down her sandwich and took the card, examining it carefully. It looks like some kind of credit or gift card, but there's no name on it." She turned it over in her hands. "Where exactly did you find it?" "Right by the employee parking area. Could have been dropped by a guest or maybe one of us workers. I just don't feel right keeping it, you know?" Carmen nodded seriously. "Of course not. That wouldn't be right." She looked at the card again. "Tell you what, let me see if I can figure out what kind of card this is. Maybe I can trace it back to whoever lost it." "You don't have to go through all that trouble," Robert said. "It's no trouble at all," Carmen said firmly. "Someone out there is probably worried sick about losing this. How would I feel if I lost something important and nobody tried to help me get it back?" Robert watched as Carmen carefully wrapped the card in a napkin and put it in her pocket. "I'll look into it tonight when I get home. My daughter Isabella is good with computers. Between the two of us, we'll figure out how to find the rightful owner." "Your daughter?" Robert asked, glancing at the college papers. Carmen's face brightened. "Yes, she's 17. Applying to colleges right now. She wants to study nursing." Her expression became more serious. "It's expensive, but we're managing. She's worked so hard for this opportunity." Robert could see the pride in Carmen's eyes, mixed with worry about the costs. Here was a woman who clearly needed money desperately, but her first instinct was still to return what wasn't hers. That evening, Robert couldn't focus on anything. He kept thinking about the contrast between Victoria and Carmen. Two women, both given the same opportunity, both making completely different choices. He decided to follow up on both of them. First, he checked on Victoria. Through the hotel's security cameras, he still had some privileges as the building's actual owner. He watched her return to the hotel restaurant that evening. She ordered the most expensive items on the menu and paid with the card. She was laughing with her friends, telling them about her lucky day. "I'm telling you, sometimes the universe just rewards you," she was saying. "I've been working so hard lately. I deserve something good to happen." Her friends were impressed by her sudden generosity, not knowing she was spending someone else's money. Meanwhile, Robert decided to drive to Carmen's neighborhood. He had gotten her address from the employee files. It was a modest apartment complex in a working-class area of town. The buildings were old but well-maintained, with small gardens and children playing in the courtyard. Through Carmen's window, he could see her sitting at a small kitchen table with a teenage girl who must be Isabella. They had a laptop open and were making phone calls. Robert could hear fragments of their conversation. "Hi, this is Carmen Santos calling about a lost credit card." "No, I don't know the owner's name." "Yes, I understand you can't give me personal information, but maybe you could contact them." They spent over 2 hours making calls to different credit card companies, trying to find a way to return the card. When those efforts failed, Isabella suggested posting on social media and local community boards. "Mom, we could really use this money," Isabella said quietly. "College is so expensive and you're already working double shifts." Robert's heart nearly broke as he listened to Carmen's response. "Mija, listen to me carefully," Carmen said, taking her daughter's hands. "Money that isn't ours will never bring us happiness. Yes, college is expensive, Yes, we're struggling. But we're not the kind of people who build our success on someone else's loss. But what if we can't find the owner? Then we'll keep trying. And if we truly can't find them, we'll donate it to someone who needs it more than we do. But we won't spend a penny on ourselves until we're absolutely sure it doesn't belong to someone else. Isabella hugged her mother tightly. I'm proud of you, Mom, even if it means I might not get to go to college. You'll go to college, Carmen said firmly. We'll find a way. The right way. Robert sat in his car outside the apartment complex for a long time, processing what he had witnessed. Two women, two completely different responses to the same moral test. Victoria had seen an opportunity and taken it without a second thought. Carmen had seen a responsibility and was determined to fulfill it, even at great personal cost. But the test wasn't over yet. Robert needed to see how far each woman would go with their choices. Would Victoria's greed have limits? Would Carmen's honesty hold up under pressure? The next phase of his experiment would push both women even further, and the results would challenge everything Robert thought he knew about human nature. As he drove home to his empty mansion, Robert realized that this experiment was changing him as much as it was revealing the truth about others. For the first time in years, he had witnessed genuine goodness in action, but the biggest surprises were still to come. Robert barely slept that night. He kept thinking about Carmen and her daughter, sitting at their small kitchen table working so hard to do the right thing, and Victoria, spending money that wasn't hers without a care in the world. The contrast was keeping him awake. When he arrived at work the next morning, still disguised as Tom the maintenance worker, he was surprised to see Carmen waiting for him by the employee entrance. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept much either. Tom, she called out as he approached. I'm so glad I caught you. In her hand was the black card along with a folded piece of paper. Carmen, you look exhausted. Are you okay? Robert asked, genuinely concerned. I'm fine, she said, though the dark circles under her eyes suggested otherwise. I stayed up most of the night working on this card situation. Isabella and I called every credit card company we could find. We posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and every local community board online. We even called the police to see if anyone had reported it missing. Robert's throat felt tight. That's really going above and beyond. No, it's just the right thing to do, Carmen said simply. But here's the thing, we discovered the card has money on it. Quite a bit of money. Robert's pulse quickened. This was the moment of truth. Carmen continued. We called the card company and they confirmed it's a prepaid card with $10,000 on it. $10,000, Tom, can you imagine? Someone out there has lost their life savings, or maybe money for medical bills or college tuition. She handed him the card and the folded paper. Isabella helped me write this note. We want you to help us post it on the hotel's lost and found board, and maybe ask the front desk to make announcements. We need to find whoever lost this. Robert unfolded the paper with trembling hands. The note was written in neat, careful handwriting. To whoever lost this card, we found your black prepaid card and discovered it contains $10,000. We know you must be desperate to get it back. We understand what it's like to struggle financially, and we also understand what it's like to do the right thing even when it's difficult. Please contact the hotel's lost and found. We hope this finds its way back to you safely. Your money is waiting for you. A friend who cares. Robert stared at the note, unable to speak. Here was a woman who worked multiple jobs to support her daughter's college dreams, who lived paycheck to paycheck, who had every reason to keep the money, and she was giving it back to a complete stranger. Carmen, he managed to say, his voice hoarse. $10,000 could really help you and Isabella. Carmen's expression became firm but not angry. Tom, my daughter asked me the same question last night. She said maybe this was God's way of helping us with college expenses. Carmen paused, looking directly into Robert's eyes. But I told her something important. I said, Mia, money that comes from doing wrong will never make our lives better. It will only make us into people we don't want to be. She continued, I've cleaned hotel rooms for 15 years. I've seen how wealthy people live, how they spend money without thinking. But I've also seen how money can change people, make them selfish and cruel. I don't want that for my family. Robert felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. But Carmen, you work so hard. You deserve something good to happen to you. Good things do happen to me, Carmen said with a smile. Every day Isabella comes home from school with good grades. That's something good. When my coworkers help each other during tough times, That's something good. When I go to sleep knowing I did the right thing, that's something good. She gestured to the card in Robert's hands. This money belongs to someone else. Maybe they're wealthy and it won't matter much to them. Or maybe they're like us and it's everything they have. Either way, it's not ours to keep. Robert looked at this remarkable woman standing in front of him. In his world of corporate mergers and billion-dollar deals, he had never encountered this kind of moral clarity. What if we can't find the owner? Then we'll keep trying. And if after a long time we truly can't find them, Isabella and I talked about this too. We'll donate it to someone who needs it more than we do. Maybe a homeless shelter or families who can't afford school supplies for their kids. Carmen checked her watch. I need to start my shift, but Tom, will you help us? Can you ask at the front desk about making announcements? Maybe someone will come forward. Of course, Robert said quietly. I'll take care of it. As Carmen walked away, Robert stood frozen in the parking lot holding the card and the note. This woman had just given up what could have been a life-changing amount of money. Without hesitation, without looking back, without even considering keeping it. Robert thought about Victoria, who had spent the money within hours of getting the card. He thought about his ex-wife and her family, who had viewed his wealth as their personal ATM. He thought about all the business associates who had betrayed him for money over the years. And then he thought about Carmen, who worked double shifts cleaning hotel rooms and still wouldn't take a penny that didn't belong to her. That afternoon, Robert did something he hadn't planned. He extended his experiment. He found Victoria in the hotel lobby again, still wearing expensive clothes, probably paid for with the stolen money. Excuse me, miss, he said, approaching her as Tom, the maintenance worker, again. Victoria looked up with irritation. What now? Remember that card I gave you yesterday? The one I found? Victoria's face went pale. What about it? Well, the front desk got a call this morning. Turns out someone's been looking for a card just like that. They said they lost $10,000 on a prepaid card somewhere in the hotel. Robert watched as the color drained completely from Victoria's face. Her hands started shaking slightly. They said $10,000? She whispered. Yeah, apparently it was money for their mother's cancer treatment. They're pretty desperate to get it back. Robert was making this up, but he wanted to see how Victoria would react. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I meant to turn it in, but I've been so busy with work. Oh, that's okay, Robert said innocently. Do you still have it? I can take it to the front desk right now. Well, the thing is, Victoria stammered. I was trying to figure out what kind of card it was, and I might have accidentally used it once or twice, just to test if it worked, to see if it was active. Robert raised his eyebrows. Oh no. How much did you accidentally spend? Victoria's voice was barely audible. Maybe a few $100s. But I was planning to pay it back. I swear. Robert knew from the security footage that she had spent over $3,000 in 2 days. A few hundred? That's not so bad. I'm sure they'll understand it was an accident. Right, an accident, Victoria said quickly. Should I bring the card to the front desk? That would be great, Robert said. I'm sure they'll be so grateful to get their mother's cancer treatment money back. As Robert walked away, he could hear Victoria making frantic phone calls, probably trying to figure out how to replace the money she had stolen. But his mind wasn't on Victoria anymore. It was on Carmen, who at that very moment was upstairs, cleaning rooms with the same careful attention she always showed, never knowing that her honesty had just restored a billionaire's faith in humanity. Robert spent the rest of his shift thinking about what he had witnessed. Carmen hadn't just returned the money. She had done it with grace, with dignity, with genuine concern for the person who had lost it. She had turned what could have been a simple transaction into a lesson about character and integrity. That evening, Robert made a decision that would change everything. But first, he needed to complete his experiment. He needed to see how this story would end, and he had a feeling that the biggest surprises were still ahead. As he drove home, Robert realized that Carmen had given him something more valuable than the $10,000 she had returned. She had given him hope that good people still existed in the world. Tomorrow he would find out just how deep that goodness ran. Robert arrived at work early the next morning with a plan. He needed to understand more about Carmen's character. Yesterday's honesty could have been a one-time thing, or it could reveal something deeper. He had to know for sure. But first, he wanted to see how Victoria was handling the pressure of her choice. He found her in the hotel lobby at 8 a.m., 2 hours before she usually arrived. She was pacing back and forth, constantly checking her phone. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled. Her hair wasn't styled properly, and she kept fidgeting with her clothes. "Morning, miss," Robert said, approaching her as Tom the maintenance worker. Victoria jumped like she'd been shocked. "Oh, Tom, you scared me. Sorry about that. You're here early today. Everything okay?" Victoria's laugh was shaky and forced. "Everything's fine, just busy with work, you know." Robert could see the stress in her eyes. "Did you manage to get that card to the front desk? The one for the person with the sick mother?" "Yes, well, not exactly. I mean, I'm working on it," Victoria said quickly. "The thing is, I might have accidentally spent a little more than I thought. I'm trying to figure out how to fix the situation." Robert had been monitoring the card's activity through his banking connections. Victoria had actually spent another $2,000 the previous evening, despite knowing the money belonged to someone else. She had gone to an expensive restaurant and shopping mall, apparently trying to enjoy the stolen money before she had to give it back. "How much more?" Robert asked innocently. Victoria's face turned red. Maybe a couple thousand. But I'm getting the money together to pay it back. I just need a few days." Robert knew she was lying. He had checked her financial records, legally, since he owned the investigation firm that did background checks for the hotel. Victoria had credit card debt, car payments, and rent that took up most of her salary. She didn't have $2,000 to spare, let alone the full $10,000 she had spent. "I'm sure they'll understand," Robert said. "Medical emergencies are serious. I hope you can get it sorted out soon." As he walked away, he heard Victoria making another frantic phone call, probably trying to borrow money from friends or family. Robert felt sick watching her panic, but it confirmed what he already suspected. When faced with the consequences of her choice, Victoria was more concerned about getting caught than about the person she had stolen from. Now, it was time for the real test. Robert needed to see how Carmen would react under pressure. He found Carmen in the hotel's laundry room, carefully folding towels. She worked with the same attention to detail that she put into everything else, making sure each fold was perfect. "Carmen, hi," Robert said, approaching her workstation. "Good morning, Tom. How are you today?" Carmen's smile was as warm as always, despite the fact that she looked tired. "I'm okay, but I have some news about that card," Robert said seriously. Carmen immediately stopped folding and gave him her full attention. "Did someone claim it? Please tell me the owner came forward." "Well, not exactly," Robert said, "but I talked to the front desk and they said something interesting. They said that technically, if no one claims it within 30 days, the person who found it gets to keep it legally." Carmen's expression didn't change. "Okay, and it's been a week already. So in 3 more weeks, if no one comes forward, the money would be yours legally. $10,000, Carmen. Think about what that could mean for Isabella's college fund." Robert watched Carmen's face carefully. He was looking for any sign of temptation, any hint that she might reconsider her decision. Instead, Carmen shook her head firmly. "Tom, I don't care what the law says. Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. That money belongs to someone else, and I'm not going to stop looking for them just because a month passes." "But Carmen," Robert pressed gently, "Isabella's college applications are due soon. You've been working double shifts to save money. This could solve all your problems." Carmen set down the towel she was holding and looked Robert directly in the eyes. "Tom, can I tell you something? When Isabella was little, she used to ask me why we couldn't live in a big house like some of her friends, why we had to shop at thrift stores while other families bought everything new." She continued, "I told her that real wealth isn't about what you own, it's about who you are. I said, Mia, we might not have much money, but we have something more valuable. We have our integrity, and that's something no one can ever take away from us." Robert felt a lump forming in his throat. "If I kept this money," Carmen said, "what would I be teaching Isabella? That it's okay to take what isn't yours as long as you don't get caught? That our principles only matter when they're convenient?" Carmen picked up another towel and continued folding. "I've seen what money does to people, Tom. I clean the rooms of wealthy guests and I hear how they talk to each other, how they treat people like us. Money without character is just a way to become ugly on the inside." Robert was stunned into silence. Here was a woman who understood something that had taken him decades to learn. That character mattered more than wealth. What if the owner is wealthy? Robert asked. What if $10,000 doesn't mean much to them? Then I'll be happy for them that they can afford to lose it, Carmen said simply. But it still belongs to them, not to me. That afternoon, Robert decided to test Carmen's character in a different way. He wanted to see how she treated people when she thought no one was watching. He followed her during her lunch break and watched as she sat in the employee cafeteria. An elderly man who worked in the hotel's kitchen was sitting alone at a table, looking sad and tired. Without hesitation, Carmen walked over to him. Hey, Jorge, mind if I sit with you? Jorge's face lit up. Of course, Carmen. I was just feeling a little lonely today. Rough morning, Carmen asked, unpacking her simple lunch. My grandson was supposed to visit this weekend, but he canceled again, third time this month. I think he's embarrassed by his old grandfather who works in a kitchen. Robert watched as Carmen listened with genuine attention, offering words of comfort and encouragement. When Jorge mentioned he had forgotten to pack a lunch, Carmen immediately shared half of her sandwich with him, even though her own lunch was already small. After lunch, Robert saw Carmen help a new employee who was struggling with the hotel's cleaning procedures. She stayed 20 minutes past the end of her break, patiently teaching the younger woman the best techniques for cleaning different types of surfaces. Don't worry, Carmen told the stressed newcomer. We all struggled at first. You're doing great. If you ever need help, just ask any of us. We're like family here. Later that day, Robert witnessed Carmen comforting a coworker whose daughter was sick. She listened for 30 minutes while the woman cried about medical bills and missed work days, offering both emotional support and practical advice about financial assistance programs. Every interaction revealed the same thing. Carmen's kindness wasn't an act. It wasn't something she turned on and off depending on who was watching. It was simply who she was. That evening, Robert sat in his car outside the hotel, processing everything he had observed. In his world of corporate executives and wealthy socialites, he had become accustomed to people who showed kindness only when it benefited them. People who were generous with others' money but stingy with their own time and attention. Carmen was different. She gave freely of herself, her time, her food, her emotional energy, to anyone who needed it. And she did it while struggling financially herself. Robert thought about Victoria, who was probably at home right now, frantically trying to figure out how to replace the money she had stolen. Her first instinct had been to take what wasn't hers, and her second instinct was to cover up her theft. Carmen's first instinct had been to return what wasn't hers, and her continued instinct was to do everything possible to find the rightful owner. The contrast was stark and undeniable. But Robert's experiment wasn't over yet. Tomorrow, he would reveal his true identity and see how both women reacted when they learned that their moral test had been designed by a billionaire. He had a feeling that their responses would be just as revealing as everything else he had witnessed. As Robert drove home to his mansion, he realized that Carmen had already changed him. For the first time in years, he felt hopeful about humanity. There were still good people in the world, people who chose character over convenience, integrity over easy money. The question now was, what was he going to do about it? Robert stood in front of his bathroom mirror, looking at Tom Martinez one last time. The fake mustache, the rough makeup, the humble work clothes. It was time to put Robert Williams back together. His week-long experiment was about to reach its conclusion, and he had never been more nervous about anything in his entire life. The transformation back to billionaire took 2 hours. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, confident posture. But inside, he felt like a completely different person than the man who had started this experiment 7 days ago. That morning, instead of arriving at work as Tom the maintenance worker, Robert Williams walked through the front entrance of the Grand Plaza Hotel as its true owner. The desk staff immediately straightened up, offering greetings and assistance. The same people who had ignored Tom now rushed to serve Robert. "Mr. Williams," the manager exclaimed, hurrying over. "We weren't expecting you today. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine, David," Robert said. "I need to speak with someone from your housekeeping staff. Carmen Santos. Can you have her come to the conference room in 10 minutes? "Of course, sir." "Should I tell her what this is about?" "Just tell her it's about returning something that was lost." As Robert waited in the elegant conference room, his heart was pounding. Through the window, he could see the hotel garden where he had watched Carmen eat lunch with Jorge, sharing her sandwich with kindness and grace. In a few minutes, he would face the woman who had restored his faith in humanity. There was a soft knock at the door. "Come in," Robert called. Carmen entered the room, clearly nervous and confused. She was wearing her neat but worn uniform, her hands clasped in front of her. When she saw Robert sitting at the head of the conference table, her eyes widened in recognition. For a long moment, they stared at each other in silence. "Tom," Carmen whispered, her voice barely audible. "My real name is Robert Williams," he said gently. "I own this hotel." Carmen's face went through a series of emotions, confusion, realization, and then something that looked like fear. "I don't understand. Why were you—" "Please sit down," Robert said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I have a lot to explain." Carmen sat down slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. Are you the person who lost the card?" Robert nodded. "I am. But it's more complicated than that." Over the next 30 minutes, Robert told Carmen everything. His divorce, his cynicism about human nature, his decision to test people's honesty, the 2 identical cards, Victoria's immediate theft, and Carmen's unwavering integrity. "You were testing me?" Carmen asked when he finished. Her voice was calm, but Robert could see hurt in her eyes. "Yes," Robert admitted, "and I'm not proud of the deception. But Carmen, what I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about people." Carmen was quiet for a long time, processing the information. Finally, she spoke. "So the money really was yours all along?" "Yes, but what you did with it, how you handled it, that was entirely you," Robert said. "Carmen, do you realize what you did?" "You gave up $10,000 without a second thought. You spent hours trying to find the owner. You wrote that beautiful note. You were willing to donate the money rather than keep a penny for yourself." Carmen shrugged slightly. "It was the right thing to do." "Most people don't do the right thing when it costs them so much," Robert said. "In my world, I'm surrounded by people who would have kept that money without hesitation. People who see opportunities to benefit themselves and take them, regardless of who gets hurt." He leaned forward in his chair. "Carmen, I've met with presidents and prime ministers. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals with the smartest business minds in the world. But in all my years, I have never met anyone with the strength of character that you showed this week." Carmen's cheeks flushed. "Mr. Williams, I appreciate what you're saying, but I just did what my mother taught me. What I've tried to teach Isabella, you don't take what isn't yours." "It's more than that," Robert insisted. "I watched you this week. I saw how you treated Jorge when he was lonely, how you helped the new employee, how you comforted your coworker whose daughter was sick. Your kindness isn't just about honesty. It's about genuine care for other people." Carmen looked down at her hands. "Everyone deserves kindness, Mr. Williams. Everyone's fighting battles we know nothing about." Robert felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Carmen, I want to offer you something. But first I need to ask you a question. Why did you really return the money? And please be completely honest with me." Carmen looked up and met his eyes directly. "Because I have a daughter who's watching every choice I make. Because I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror every morning. Because money that comes from doing wrong turns bitter in your mouth." She paused. "And because somewhere out there I thought someone was counting on that money for something important." Robert nodded slowly. "What if I told you that someone was counting on it? That the money was meant to test whether good people still exist in this world?" "Then I'm glad I could help you find your answer," Carmen said simply. Robert stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "Carmen, I want to offer you a job. Not as a housekeeper, but as my personal assistant. The salary would be 6 figures. You'd work directly with me, helping me make decisions about charitable giving, community outreach, and finding ways to help people who need it most." Carmen's eyes widened in shock. "Mr. Williams, I don't have that kind of experience. I clean hotel rooms." "You have something more valuable than experience," Robert said, turning back to face her. "You have judgment. You have integrity. You understand what really matters in life." He paused. "I've been making business decisions for 30 years, but I've never been good at understanding people. You could help me figure out how to use my wealth to actually make a difference." Carmen was quiet for a long time, tears forming in her eyes. "What about Isabella's college?" Robert smiled. "Full scholarship. to any school she wants to attend. And Carmen, there's something else. He pulled out an envelope from his jacket. The deed to a house in your neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with a small garden. It's yours. Carmen's hands flew to her mouth. Mr. Williams, I can't. This is too much. It's not too much, Robert said firmly. Carmen, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. You showed me that good people still exist. That integrity isn't dead. That kindness isn't weakness. His voice cracked slightly. You saved me from becoming a bitter, cynical man who had lost all faith in humanity. Carmen stood up slowly, still in shock. But what about my friends here? The people I work with? They're like family to me. Robert felt his chest tighten with emotion, even now faced with life-changing opportunity. Carmen's first thought was about the people she would leave behind. You know what? Robert said, making a decision on the spot. What if you worked part-time for me and part-time here? What if we started a program to provide better benefits for hotel workers, college scholarships for their children, and support for employees facing hardships? Carmen's eyes filled with tears. You would do that? We would do that, Robert corrected. Together. You understand these people's needs better than I ever could. Carmen wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Mr. Williams, can I ask you something? Anything. What happened to the other woman? The one with the other card? Robert's expression darkened slightly. Victoria spent the money immediately. When I told her someone was looking for it, she lied about how much she'd spent. She's currently trying to borrow money to replace what she stole. What will happen to her? Robert was surprised by the question. What do you think should happen to her? Carmen was quiet for a moment. I think she made a mistake. A big mistake. But maybe she just needs someone to show her a better way to live. Robert stared at Carmen in amazement. Even now, even knowing that Victoria had stolen money without hesitation, Carmen's instinct was compassion rather than punishment. Would you like to be involved in deciding how to handle her situation? Robert asked. Carmen nodded. Everyone deserves a second chance to do the right thing. 6 months later, Robert stood in the same conference room, looking out at the hotel garden. But everything had changed. Carmen had taken the job, working 3 days a week as his assistant and 2 days at the hotel, coordinating their new employee support program. Isabella was thriving in her first semester at nursing school, sending her mother excited texts about her classes every day. Victoria had been given a choice: face legal consequences for theft, or participate in a community service program that Carmen had designed. She chose community service and was now volunteering at a homeless shelter, slowly learning about the value of helping others rather than just helping herself. The hotel's employee benefits had been completely revamped: college scholarships, medical assistance, childcare support, all programs that Carmen had suggested and helped implement. But the biggest change was in Robert himself. For the first time in decades, he looked forward to going to work. He was making decisions based on more than just profit margins. He was building something meaningful. There was a knock at the door. Carmen entered carrying a folder of proposals for their next community initiative. How's Isabella doing? Robert asked, as he always did. Carmen's face lit up with pride. She called last night. She's helping start a program to provide free health screenings in low-income neighborhoods. She said she learned from her mother that the best way to help yourself is to help others. Robert smiled. Smart girl. She gets it from her mother. As they worked together that afternoon, Robert reflected on how a simple test of honesty had changed both of their lives completely. Carmen had given him back his faith in humanity, and he had given her the opportunity to help others on a scale she had never imagined possible. But the most remarkable thing wasn't the money or the job or the house. It was the realization that goodness, real goodness, still existed in the world. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it came disguised as a hotel maid with rough hands and a heart of gold, reminding you that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought with any amount of money. The black card experiment had ended, but the friendship and partnership it had created would last forever. And somewhere in the city, people were being helped every day because one woman had chosen to do the right thing when she thought no one was watching. That choice had changed everything.